This was a hate rally.
A number of speakers used downright racist and offensive language.
There's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
We like
Buddy!
jokes. And we understand the importance of a comedian having the freedom to push the envelope.
In 1939, more than 20,000 supporters of a different fascist leader, Adolf Hitler, packed the Garden for a so-called pro-America rally. Donald Trump is once again turning Madison Square Garden into a staging ground for extremism.
And they either want to win this election or they are using rhetoric of taking it by force.
So Donald Trump held a historical rally in New York City at Madison Square Garden, with the venue being at max capacity of just under 20,000 people. But I think the even more surprising statistic is the fact that nearly 80,000 people were around the venue watching from outside. And the reason why they know this is the ability to look at the number of mobile devices directly in the vicinity of Madison Square Garden itself. This was put out by Benny Johnson. He put out some GPS rally stats from GPS, of course. And he threw these out there. A total of 98,678 mobile devices were in the vicinity of Trump's Madison Square Garden rally. Just under 20,000 were in the venue itself, which I believe Madison Square Garden holds 19,500. And the remaining balance watched from outside. And this is what it looked like.
So we had
right here.
A lot of people voting, but really
we have this giant screen right here watching from outside. This is a massive crowd of people. The vast majority, of course, watched from outside, and just under half were first-time rally goers, which is pretty impressive. But really, by anyone's standards, this event was a massive success. You have arguably the most iconic venue in the United States being packed to capacity with tens of thousands of people watching outside on a giant screen what is happening inside as a very famous but motley crew of individuals spoke. I mean, you had RFK Jr., who was a Democrat, Vivek Ramaswamy, who was a Republican, Hulk Hogan, who was a wrestler, Dr. Phil, who was like a TV psychiatrist, and yes, a very funny comedian. Oh boy, Tony Hinchcliffe.
I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay. All right. Okay. We're getting there. Again, normally I don't follow the national anthem, everybody.
So the comedian who made this joke goes by the name of Tony Hinchcliffe, who is actually very good friends with Joe Rogan as well. And he also hosts a live comedy show on YouTube. But I think to understand this joke and the reason why the media is freaking out about this is because you got to understand where Tony Hinchcliffe comes from. Tony Hinchcliffe has been a comedian for many years, and he's a popular comedian. But he's been through this environment the past few years where even if you're a comedian, you are unable to say something that might be edgy or funny because of the fact that you could be canceled. You could have this mob go after you, and you could possibly lose your livelihood even if you are a comedian, even if you are pointing out something that might be humorous, might be funny. And he's actually gone through this very thing when he made an Asian joke. This was a few years back, and the mob came after him. And if it weren't for his friends like Joe Rogan standing up for him and platforming him, he may be an afterthought now. But instead, he is a very funny, very famous comedian who has a very great show. I encourage any of you guys to check it out. So he made this joke about Puerto Rico. Now, myself, I guess I really didn't understand the joke. I guess it was kind of funny. It was a little bit offensive, but that's okay. Jokes can be offensive. That doesn't mean that we hate Puerto Ricans. But the media is absolutely freaking out about this. And this is, I think, the kind of point that he wanted to make. He wants to get back to a place where we can say edgy things without a total freak out from the corporate press, because they're not freaking out because they actually believe that he said anything wrong. No. They're freaking out because they want to use your emotions and your offense as a cudgel to try to steer you in one direction or another. But while this rally was going on, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, yes, AOC, was watching it with Tim Walz. Yes, they were gaming together. So they're like on a stream together. I guess they must have stopped I think they were playing Madden. I think they were playing, the Madden video game. They stopped to watch this Madison Square Garden Trump rally. And when they heard this joke, they weren't amused whatsoever. Take a look.
Getting there.
Who is that jackwad? Who is that guy?
Actually, I think that's Tony Hinchcliffe, which is super disappointing. I mean, it's like super upsetting. Obviously, it's super upsetting to me. My family is from Puerto Rico. I'm Puerto Rican, and
listen, AOC, it's a joke. Relax. But this response is actually pretty tame compared to when she went on MSNBC. You see, when they are reacting to these things in, real time, it's really hard for them to show their offense at the proper level. Why? Because these types of jokes don't elicit or shouldn't elicit that type of reaction. It's an edgy joke. Is it an offensive joke? Maybe to some, but sometimes jokes are offensive. It's the nature of free speech. You don't have to be offended. But after really thinking about what to say, after getting probably some talking points from the Democrat Party, she went on MSNBC and listened to her rhetoric. Now, it's way, way different. Take a look.
So, Congressman, last night, right here in New York City, your hometown, Donald Trump held a packed rally at Madison Square Garden, and a number of speakers used downright racist and offensive language, no more so than the so-called comedian who said that Puerto Rico was an island of garbage. Can you just give us your reaction to what you heard last night, just hours and hours of frankly, hate, and how it could electrify this electorate?
Well, there's a couple of things. As you mentioned, this was a hate rally. I think it's very important for people to understand that these are mini January 6th rallies. These are rallies to prime an electorate into rejecting the results of an election if it doesn't go the way that they want. And they either want to win this election or they are using rhetoric of taking it by force. That is what they mean, and that's what they're doing when they are inciting violence and hatred against Latinos, against Black Americans.
Whoa. AOC, relax. But did you notice the difference in rhetoric when she was reacting to it live versus when she was going on MSNBC, which is just a trash news organization, okay? I mean, they are probably the most militant news organization that just spews out total nonsense, which I guess it's a good, network for AOC to go on. But do you notice the difference? When she's reacting to it live, she just kind of says, oh, I don't like it. But when she is reacting to it on MSNBC, after she's had some time to think about it, after she's probably gotten some, some words from the Democrats, a little script to go by, it is literally a hate rally. It is total hate being spewed against Latinas and Black people. But I actually have a friend of mine who was at the rally, and he was going around. He was talking to some of the Puerto Ricans who were at this rally. And he asked them what they thought of Tony Hinchcliffe's joke. Now, to be fair, they didn't say that they actually liked the joke. I mean, because who likes to be the butt of the joke? But that's not the point. I think what's more interesting is how they responded to the joke. How they said, yes, I like jokes. Tony Hinchcliffe has every right to say this joke. He's a comedian. Take a look at how some of these individuals reacted. Watch.
We like jokes. We like jokes.
We do. We understand the importance of a comedian having the freedom to push the envelope, because that's always been what has separated comedians from everyday folks, right? Where they can push the envelope to either make you laugh or make you think or challenge you, right?
Pero, because obviously we're such proud Puerto Ricans, I will say that it is not a little floating pile of trash. This beautiful island filled with beautiful people that love the beautiful islands, and it's okay to have different opinions. That's what makes America great, that people could just have different opinions. So you know what? We're not offended. Did we like the joke?
No,
I didn't like the joke.
I didn't like the joke.
I don't even think the crowd, he bombed that joke.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny. Don't get me wrong. At first, I'm like,
the joke
wow, that's
in
crazy.
New York City maybe was not in the right landing.
Probably right. Probably not the right landing.
So I think these two girls, their attitudes are fantastic. They're two Puerto Ricans. They say they don't necessarily like the joke. They think Puerto Rico is beautiful. But they understand that it's important for a comedian to be able to push the envelope. That's what they said. This is something that comedians do historically. They say things that might be uncomfortable to elicit, laughter, to try to delve into areas that get people to kind of loosen up about certain subjects. And it's an art form. Tony Hinchcliffe is literally a comedian. Comedy is an art form. And to weaponize your offense and go after an art form, this is what the left wants to do. And I have to frame this correctly. The left isn't doing this because they necessarily want comedy to disappear or anything like that. No, it's because the left is running out of weapons for which to advance their narrative. So, racism really doesn't exist even nearly as much as maybe it had in the past. But there are comedians who say edgy things. So therefore, they use those edgy things to try to prove to everyone else, really people nowadays that only have this woke mind virus that gets offended at stuff like this. But they try to prove to everyone else that this is a huge problem. Therefore, you must act this way or you must feel this certain way, in this case, about Trump and his supporters. It's a problem. It is something that is a white supremacist rally. It can be compared to Hitler. And that's really what they want to do. It's not really, it has nothing to do with comedy whatsoever. They just need a tool to try to direct someone's vitriol towards this group of MAGA supporters, which I happen to be a part of.
But that jamboree happening right now, you see it there on your screen, in that place is particularly chilling because in 1939, more than 20,000 supporters of a different fascist leader, Adolf Hitler, packed the Garden for a so-called pro-America rally. A rally where speakers voiced anti-Semitic rhetoric from a stage draped with Nazi banners. When a Jewish protester rushed the stage, the Associated Press reported, quote, instantly, a dozen or more stormtroopers set upon him, knocking him down and beating him as he held his head in his arms. Most of his clothing was torn from his body. Later, he was booked for disorderly conduct. Now, against that backdrop of history, Donald Trump, the man who has threatened to use the military against opponents he calls enemies from within, who has threatened to use the troops to quell what he says are lawless cities, and to use those troops to carry out mass deportations of immigrants, is once again turning Madison Square Garden into a staging ground for extremism.
This shows that the Democrat Party, they have nothing. They can't run on their own policy. They can't run on anything that they've done. They can't point to something that's made your life better. They can't point to really anything that has improved America in any way, shape, or form. All they can do is fill your mind full of fear. To compare a rally that Donald Trump held, where he has former Democrats, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, he has people that really hasn't gotten political in the past, like Dr. Phil, at least not that I know of, not to my knowledge. People like Vivek Ramaswamy, who is an Indian Hindu. They like to associate the right with white nationalism, with Christian nationalism, and all these other things. This was arguably one of the most inclusive rallies that could happen. Yet they are comparing this to arguably the worst person in history, at least from the public's perception. They're comparing it to that. And they wonder why Donald Trump gets these attempts on his life. This is why the Republicans have asked multiple times for the media to tone down the rhetoric, yet they don't. Why is that? Because they are losing, and they are losing bad. And you can hear it in their voice. Take a look.
I think a lot of people are seeing that rally at Madison Square Garden, seeing all those people. Doesn't mean he's going to win the race. But my point is, it's discouraging that so many people would gather and rally to hate speech in America. That it's discouraging and it hurts that people who have family in Puerto Rico, who are Puerto Rican Americans, who are American citizens, are hearing hate like that. It's discouraging, Joe. And I do want to show Michelle Obama and Kalamazoo, but I just think it's important to look at the situation. And it's not just, oh my gosh, about the race. It's, oh my gosh, how did we get here? How did we get here where a stadium of people come to hate? That's
Well-
a different country, a different time.
You know how you get past that?
How do you get past that?
Work harder, vote,
Yes.
and win. That's how you get past it.
So essentially, what you have here are two mouthpieces of the Democrat Party looking very downtrodden over the success of Donald Trump's rally. And they are telling their viewers, who are, of course, Democrats and people like me who like to make fun of them, but they're telling their viewers to work harder and get out and vote. But why? What's the justification? All they have is this idea that what was coming out of this rally was pure hate. That's all they got. And when they reference, some of these things that were said, they're coming from comedians. They're coming from people who are historically known to say edgy things. So that's all they have to point to. They are literally freaking out about this movement. But something that's kind of comical and something that shows that their accusations of hate knows no bounds is this that I saw on Twitter from a journalist who was going after Elon Musk for something that he said that really wasn't even a part of his speech. He just mentioned it before he gave his speech.
I'm not just MAGA. I'm dark, gothic MAGA.
He pointed to his hat. That was a dark MAGA hat. And she is going after not just the hat, but specifically the font. This is what she says. Elon posted his MAGA hat, which uses the Frankter font, popular in Nazi Germany. He wore this at the rally meant to invoke the 1939 Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden. He's telling you who he is. And then she includes a picture of the hat along with, I guess, this font that this hat uses to say, make America great again. Now, if you ask me, I don't believe that the left is a serious movement. They may be a dangerous movement, but they are not serious. When you can't run on your own merits or point to anything positive that you have done for the United States, but instead you have to take the words of a comedian and try to attach context that isn't there, and you have to go on national television and compare a political rally to a Hitler rally, use mainstream media brands that have been around all my life, like MSNBC, CNN, all these brands that we've watched on TV for a really long time, to use them and to try to use their credibility, which really is not there anymore, to reinforce this joke of a narrative. You're not a serious movement. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think about all this? What do you think about MSNBC comparing Trump's rally in Madison Square Garden to a Hitler rally? What do you think about AOC and the way she flopped? She flip-flopped on rhetoric. I mean, it was kind of toned down at first, and then it got very, very serious. And what do you think about the dark and ominous font on Elon Musk's hat? Let me know down below in the comments. Like, subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until then, I will see you on the next one.